passion and the excitement and the knowledge base is in this room. There's so much to share with other people, so we can work together to make this happen.
The strategic reserve represents a stockpile of the most valuable asset, but it also represents digital property. It represents a digital asset that will generate rent, that can be developed, that can be financed over time, right? It's worth anywhere from $3 trillion to $106 trillion, depending upon how programmatic and aggressive we want to pursue this opportunity. These opportunities don't come along often. This is the once-in-a-century opportunity.
Bitcoin is like digital gold. It is a store of value, and it's easy to transport. It doesn't have devaluation. And so this is why it should be bipartisan, and it is something that will help empower people economically, and a lot of the next generation views it as the best use of storage.
And so this is now a serious policy objective that the administration intends to pursue. I don't think this is a flash in the pan, and this is just the beginning. We have almost 4 more years of a Trump administration where Bitcoin policy, I think, will be among the top items on the agenda.
And I view the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve as a pivotal moment when contrasted to the last century of economic policy to come out of our nation's capital.
Bitbonds are a win-win-win. We're looking at dramatically lower interest rates in the form of savings, $554 billion.
And Bitcoin mining can shut down their facilities, their operations in minutes, and then ramp them back up, all driven by signals from the power grid.
I think the story of the past few years is Bitcoin going from a niche interest into a respectable global macro asset. The announcement of strategic reserve that the executive branch of the United States is going to say that Bitcoin has value that's different than other digital assets, and has value that is worthy of putting into a strategic reserve for the long-term betterment of the country.
The story of humanity is engineering a better world, and I think America is the best example of that. So I view Bitcoin in line with the American story and the next evolution of humans engineering a better world.
Stablecoins can be the killer app on top of a network that is open, decentralized, can reach where the dollar cannot, and can really complement US values and principle anywhere in the world.
When you think about the ethos of America, what are the set of ideals that bind together this great country? In the idea that no matter who you are or where your parents came from, you can achieve the maximum of your potential without any government or dicta standing in your way. We as human beings need symbols to reground ourselves in that ethos, and I think Bitcoin can be one of those symbols.
Bitcoin Policy Institute has become a thought leader. BPI has assembled the great thought leaders in America about digital assets and their significance in the future. The team in the White House that wants to help make America the great leader in digital asset. BPI is there present, helping make that agenda a reality.
Happy Bitcoin Monday, freaks. It's your host, Odell, here for another Citadel Dispatch, the interactive live show focused on actionable Bitcoin and freedom tech discussion. That intro clip was to pump us up. It was a pump-up video put out by the gentleman at Bitcoin Policy Institute about their last event that they had last month. We'll be talking about their larger event that is coming up next month shortly. But before I get there, I just want to thank everyone for supporting the show. Citadel Dispatch has no ads or sponsors. We are supported by viewers like you supporting the show with Bitcoin donations. You can do that twofold. You can zap the show when it's live. Our Nostr live stream is always available at citadeldispatch.com/stream. All links in general are at citadeldispatch.com. Or you can zap through your favorite podcasting 2.0 app in your podcast feeds. Fountain Podcasts seems to be the leader in that space. So you can just download Fountain Podcasts, follow your favorite podcasts, comment, zap, support. Our largest zap from last week's RIP on Fountain was 1,000 sats from Martin Baralik. And he said, listening to you while cooking lunch for the family, the vibe I've got at the end from the music was priceless. Onward. Cheers to that. That was a bugle banger that we ended last week with. But anyway, guys, I've done a couple shows about Bitcoin Policy Institute. As some of you might be aware, I'm one of the founding board members of the organization. But I brought on a new guest, a fresh face that most people do not know. I believe this is his podcast virginity. We have Stephen Pollock here, as the VP of Development at Bitcoin Policy Institute. He's in charge with helping make sure that funding, the much needed funding, comes into the org. How's it going, Stephen?
It's going well, man. How are you?
It's going great. Am I correct that this is your? Am I correct that this is your first time on a podcast?
You know, I think I did one with CK. I think CK got me like 3 years ago, but it's been a drought since. I guess I did so well that nobody's had me on in 2 or 3 years.
What show was that? CK's done a bunch.
It was the Bitcoin Mag, podcast he used to do. Yeah.
Very descriptive.
I don't know. I don't remember which one it was. It was a long time ago, man.
Well, hopefully this one will be good enough that you'll actually remember doing it. And thank you for joining us.
I'm sure it'll be very memorable. Yeah, man. Anytime. Thanks for having me on, and excited to rip, as the kids say these days.
So I queued it up. It was a surprise to you. You didn't know that I was using the BPI pump up video to start her off. And you let me know right before we started recording, right before we went live, that you actually produced this video.
I did. Yeah, I did. I didn't film it, but I produced it. And we, yeah, man, we're proud of that thing. We're proud of the event. And so excited for everybody to check it out. Thanks for showing it. We just got that done a couple weeks ago.
What does that mean that you produced it?
Yeah, it's basically you hire the people who film it, and then you kind of tell how you want it to turn out, and you order you kind of say, oh, I need this shot here. Let's make sure and feature these speakers. Here's kind of the flow, of how you want the video to go, and so you take all the credit and don't do most of the work. And it's kind of the main. I did the interviews. At least some of them. I did most of the interviews and planning for the shoot, but we hire some guys I know from back home that are really strong videographers, and they did a great job on it.
Love it.
Without me, Matt.
Yeah, you're the instrumental piece. So we started off with the video. I think that's the best place to start, because I was there in DC for that event. It blew me away. It's kind of one of those moments, when you look around, you see all the suits, and you're like, holy shit, what timeline are we in? That will stick with me for a while. But you want to just talk a little bit about what that event was, what takeaways you got from it, how you guys are thinking about it?
Yeah. There's a few things to examine with the Bitcoin for America event. And I don't know, what's been shared before, but this wasn't something we as BPI were planning to do. one, we're busy enough as it is, especially in the spring. And then two, we already have our summit, which is coming up in June, and I know we'll talk about that later. But this is the third year we're doing the Bitcoin Policy Summit, and we kind of do it late spring or early summer. So we were already planning that, which is, to anyone who's done, even small events, how much goes into that. And we, I guess, got into February. There's the whole strategic Bitcoin reserve, movement that was going on, and we kind of stuck our fingers in the air, and the winds were, a little awry, it felt like, and there was obviously XRP and the Ripple goons were, doing their thing and trying to get involved, and everybody wants to get involved when things are going well. So, there was this impression in Washington that there was not alignment from most of the community and most of the, whether it's lobbyists or, trade groups or whatever you want to call it, the, sort of the crew, about what they wanted from an executive order or from a policy standpoint. And while there's, alignment is sort of a funny thing like that. I don't think anyone's ever been aligned on anything in the history of Washington, D.C., including like what they were going to put in the Constitution, all sorts of things. But we had some form. Like, I think the point I'm trying to get at is that the message that was being circulated was like completely wrong. And we were sort of like, man, I wish somebody would do something that sort of like brings all the Bitcoiners together, all the CEOs, all the influential companies, all the trusted voices, and sort of concretize our opinion and say, hey, we are on the same page. We think, Bitcoin's good for America. And because of that, we have these various opinions and things that we would like to see enacted. And it was kind of one of those, I can't believe nobody's doing that. Like, somebody needs to do something. And somebody threw out the idea of doing an event. And we were like, oh, that's ridiculous. We're already planning one. But, it needed to happen sooner rather than later. So I think we threw together days. The industry, like all the Bitcoiners, all the executives, everybody who spoke, obviously it wouldn't have been cool at all if they had shown up and changed their calendars and rearranged schedules to be there for this. And so, we kind of threw this idea out there, and everyone really aligned with it. And I thought it went really well. I think one of the cool things, one of the highlights for me, was hearing about Bitbonds from Andrew Hones. I know that's kind of went viral since then. That was like, that was really cool to see, and to see it being embraced by, like, the DC alley cats and the Bitcoin community, both kind of being like, oh, interesting. That's an intriguing idea. I like it when that happens, when we're seeing both sides kind of engage with an idea. It doesn't happen that often. So I'll take that as a win. Yeah. What else? What'd you think, man? Like, you said the suit, like, you just kind of felt the, like, oh my God, this is real when you were there. What else struck you about the event?
I mean, you saw me. I think I was one of 3 people that weren't wearing suits when I was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean to tie on to your earlier comment about taking all the credit. Andrew Hones, the man who presented Bitbonds, he is the founder of Battery, which 1031 is the exclusive investor of.
Naturally.
So I'll take a tiny bit of credit for getting him very excited about Bitcoin. He's also a ride or die freak. But I agree. I think his Bitbonds proposal has a lot of natural energy behind it on both sides, both on the Bitcoin side and on the government side. You cut off a little bit. I think how long did it take to put together? I felt like it was like 5 weeks or 6 weeks to get the show together.
Yeah, it was like 30 days. Am I back now? You hear me all right?
Yeah, no, it's just every once in a while it drops something, but besides that, we can mostly hear you.
All right.
I don't know, freaks, in the comments, it might just be me. It might just be my side. In the comments, let us know if you can hear him all right. But it blew my mind. Like, I remember talking to David Zell, one of the co-founders of Bitcoin Policy Institute, and he's like, "Should we do this thing and beat the shitcoiners out the door and get our event out there?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then like a week later, like planning had begun, and it just like fucking happened. So that was pretty fucking cool.
Well, one thing that was really helpful was that we had alignment with Senator Lummis's team. So Connor Brown, the senator, her whole team. I don't know how it all, all the behind the scenes stuff worked, but we co-hosted. They were a co-host, and so I don't know who came up with the whole damn thing, but once we were moving on it, they were carrying a lot of water too. And so we couldn't have done it without them, obviously, and that helps speed. You normally get one of two things: you get speed or you get quality, right? And so you can do a quick event, you kind of sacrifice quality, or you can do a great event and plan for like 9 months. This is the rare exception where we did both, and I'll be honest with you, it was one of my, if not my favorite Bitcoin event I've ever been to. I think definitely one of the most impactful. And I'm not just saying that because it was ours. I think I'm saying that because of who showed up, who tuned in, and what happened before, during, and after the event. Events are fun, like we like doing them as, a community. I don't just like planning events for the sake of it. I've planned plenty, and I don't need another one, but this was strategic, and I think that's something that I really value about the Bitcoin Policy Institute and why I enjoy working on events, is because they're levers, they're tools, and something we think very carefully about to get the right people there to speak, to get the right people there to listen and observe, and to help sort of fundamentally shift even a couple degrees opinion on certain matters and perspective. I think establishing some baseline education is important, but also to those who do have that education, it's important to continue to build on it. I'm not, I think it's a great goal to say, hey, we need, like, we don't even have, this is something we can get into later, but we don't even have like a kindergartner level education when it comes to elected officials and staffers in Washington, D.C. With regards to Bitcoin. But just because we achieve that goal doesn't mean job done. Great job, everybody go home. As you've seen, like, if there's anything more dangerous than like not knowing anything about something, it's knowing a little bit and thinking you know everything. And so, we're just, I guess, working ourselves into more work, but I think it's worth it.
Love it. We got Mav21, Ride or Die Freak, proving that zaps are working in the comments. He zapped 10,000 sats. Said, yo, what's good, Mav? On that note, one of the cool things you guys announced during that event was that you guys plan on putting a Bitcoiner in every congressional office. Do you have any insight on that? I think that's pretty baller.
Yeah. I don't know about every, I think we definitely could do every office. So there's, I don't know if I don't recall that part, Matt, but yes, we will put, the plan is to put Bitcoiners in congressional offices. Thanks for taking a great idea and turning it into an impossible one. I appreciate that.
Well, we didn't get this far thinking small, Steve.
That's true. We're going to put 10 in every congressional office is what we're going to do. Yeah. So there is I did announce that we were going to do a congressional fellowship program. We're going to begin putting that into place over the next year. And so really excited about that. Basically, you're as a nonprofit and different groups, you can sort of fund staffers. And imagine that, private groups funding the government. It's unbelievable. It's magic. And so you can basically put this person in office as a resource and provide that service. And they obviously work for the office, and so we're facilitating that. And it's a project we're really excited about. I think it's going to be really, really cool. We can get some great people in there they're excited about working with congressional offices and staffing that. And a lot of this, I'm friends with a lot of staff. I mean, I don't work on the Hill, but we've got our different friends of mine just from over the years, and the ones who work for cool offices, that get it, they really enjoy working with Bitcoiners. Like they're like they love it. Everybody's pretty cool, fun to hang out with, eager to educate and help them be good at their jobs. I think anyone who helps you do your job better, just out of the kindness of their heart or because they care, you're going to like hanging out with people. And I think Bitcoiners, whether it's down in Austin and there's an event going down there, or the big events, the big tent pole like Bitcoin conferences, or if you come to one of our summits, and part of the reason we love Bitcoiners coming to our summit is because the unique experience when government officials, elected leaders, policymakers, staffers rub shoulders with just like normal Bitcoiners, they're always impressed. One, by like how smart everybody is. Two, how nice everyone is and how helpful they are and kind. And I'm painting with a broad brush because I'm sure there's some assholes out there. We probably got two of them on camera right now, but everybody else is pretty nice, and fun to hang out with. So yeah, I think that's. I know it's ridiculous that that's like a surprising outcome, but if you see some of the people that they have to put up with, especially with different groups, it's refreshing, I think, is the best word. Bitcoiners, I think, are refreshing uh, to those who spend a lot of time in Washington, and that's a huge compliment in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's not surprising to me. Bitcoiners are the best people, so it lines up with my bias. To be clear here, BPI facilitates and places the Bitcoiners in the congressional offices, but once an office takes the person, then they no longer report to BPI. They're effectively staff of that office, right?
That's right. That's right. They don't report. No, none of the staffers would report to us. We're just facilitating them to be able to. We're facilitating like a conduit. Hey, we know these Bitcoiners. Let's get
Right.
them in office and get them here, and they can do it. Yeah, they don't report to. They can't legally report to BPI or anyone else. They report to their boss in Congress.
On that note, how did you get involved with Bitcoin Policy Institute? What's your story
Yeah,
there?
yeah, it's a long story. We're not in a rush, are we?
We have all the
uh,
time in the world.
all the time in the world. So I've been at BPI, I guess right at 3 years or just over 3 years now, which is wild. I'll talk about that for a second, and then I'll kind of back up and tell you how that happened. Appreciate you asking. So when I first started at BPI, um, it was small, and we're still small, but mighty. But I mean, really small. I think I was the first full-time hire at BPI, and now we're a team of 13 plus full time. And so, kind of backing up all the way, I spent about a decade in public affairs, and most of this, and you're actually part of this story, hilariously enough, a big part. But spent a decade running campaigns, working for a lobbying firm, although I wasn't a lobbyist. I was kind of running issue advocacy, issue-based campaigns across the country, and ended up in Tennessee, and lobbied in Nashville for a couple of years as well. So kind of worked in. I mean, throw a rock in that political arena, and you'll hit 5 different jobs that I've done. So I've kind of pretty much run the gamut. Never worked in Capitol Hill, but spent a lot of time in DC during those 10 years. And, you know, I actually got just completely burned out. It was, it was just a grind. And learned a lot of things, did some great work, some things I'm really proud of, but it was just it was brutal. And so it was really during COVID that most of all of those projects shut down, and I was like had some different things I could do, um, but I was ready to do something completely different. It was also around, toward the tail end of that I kind of get interested in Bitcoin. I thought Bitcoin, was, like everybody, maybe a way to make a lot of money really fast. Actually lost a lot of money really fast is kind of how that happens. It's always the first time. But I stuck with it, and I remember, I don't know if I've told you this story actually. I kind of finally got to my baseline like interest in Bitcoin and the network, and understood that there was more to learn than just like buying something and selling it. And I didn't know anyone else. I had, I guess, one friend who even knew what Bitcoin was, and it was like the girl I was dating at the time, also known as my wife now. I don't know why I said that way. My current wife, former girlfriend, a friend of hers knew some Silicon Valley folks. Blah blah blah. Anyway, I get on with this guy, and I was just like, "Yo, like I know you know about Bitcoin." I got Twitter for the first time, and back when it was still Twitter. We're gonna be saying that for so, and like back when it was Twitter, now it's still pretty fresh, but 30 years from now, we're still going to be talking about that as some sort of like timeline marker, which is just so ridiculous. Uh, but yeah, I was like, hey, I got Twitter. Who should I follow? Like, how can I learn about Bitcoin? And this guy told me to follow you. Yeah, he was like, you were like one of the first few names out of 10. And so I was just like, all right. So that's how I followed you on Twitter. I didn't even have Twitter. Actually, that's what it was. He's like, download Twitter and follow Odell. And I don't even know if you know this guy. I can't remember his name. Some random dude. But he told me to follow you. And because of that, I did. And now I'm on your show, which is insane. I've never told you that story. I've saved it all these years, man, for this moment.
What a surprise.
So I would DM you, I would ask you about Bitcoin, and we go back and forth. And you were actually very generous and patient. Like you were really cool back then. I don't know what happened, but we'll go into that later. But yeah, man, you used to be so nice on Twitter, and as the price goes up, man, just it gets worse.
Fake news.
Fake news. So yeah, I got into Bitcoin. I started, working at a software company, and I'm not a developer, like not trying to take credit. I just produce the software. I don't actually write it. I was in sales, did sales and marketing for a SaaS company in logistics, which, dude, I'm glad I'm not in that right now, man. Like trucking and LTL and drayage. I have compassion for you guys right now. It's about to get brutal.
Straight chaos. Yeah.
Yeah, brutal. But anyway, yeah, so did that, got out of that. One day I'm hanging out with you. Well, no, so I mean, we can go through the whole thing. So I go to my first meetup, my first Bitcoin meetup. Sorry guys if this is like boring, but this is exciting for me. This is like so cool. I go to my first meetup or second meetup, and I'm like, I'm looking at this guy. I'm like, he looks an awful lot like this like cartoon. And I just walk up. I'm like, also, I've obviously like wore a dress shirt and like a jacket, because any meeting I go to in my life, this is more how I am. But I felt like you got to put on the costume.
You were a suit.
So yeah, I wore a suit. And so I'm a suit that shows up to a Bitcoin meetup for the first time. And I walk right up to Odell here. And I'm like, are you Odell? I'm like, are you mad, Odell? And you're like, why? I was like, oh man, I used to like DM you and stuff. Like, can we hang out? Can we like get lunch sometime? And you just looked at me like I was an insane person. I didn't know all the rules, you know. I didn't know, and kind of
Well, we
freaked you
got
out.
lunch.
But we got lunch, man. We hung out. We talked about
This is
this.
at
Actually,
Bitcoin Park.
yeah, Bitcoin
I
Park
mean,
in
to be
Nashville.
clear, you know, like that happens to me constantly. That's why I wasn't trying to be rude.
Yeah.
It was just
Right.
time is scarce. Let's cut to the chase.
Yeah. Unless you're on the Citadel Dispatch, time's not scarce.
Yeah, then we have unlimited time now.
0 or 1. And and so yeah, we hung out. I intentionally didn't talk about my like decade career in politics because I was like, these guys are not gonna like they'll let me come into the meetup, but like nobody's gonna want to hang with me in Bitcoin world if they think I'm like, worked in politics. That was pretty obvious to me. At least it seemed obvious. I was like, oh yeah, like, and I have much more in common with that than I do like, what I did for work, or like, politicians, kind of swampy stuff. But I didn't know if everybody would completely understand that. So I was kind of like, I don't really want to talk about it. So one day we get lunch, we're talking about, I'm like, and I'm pretty sure I can't tell you my background, and I'm pretty sure your exact quote was, "You got to be fucking kidding me," like that. And I was like, great. Well, last time we hang out with these guys, and you're like, no, like, you're never gonna believe this. So I've actually been like hanging out with these guys that run like Bitcoin Policy Institute. Have you ever heard of it? And I'm like, no, what's that? And it was you, and it was CK, and I was talking to you guys a lot about it. And so you was like, hey, like, talk to these guys. Like, maybe you guys have something in common. Like, you're like, I don't know anything about this stuff, but you do. So anyway, I was like, cool, I'll talk to David and Grant about BPI and just like, what's up? Like Bitcoin, cool, policy stuff. Yeah, like I wasn't looking for a job. I had a job. A month later, I quit that job and went to work at BPI. And it's been a while. It's like favorite job I've ever had by far. So thank you for, the part you played in that. I'm really enjoying it. And I think that I've seen BPI grow up and mature over 3 years and become something like a powerful force in DC. And I think that there are far greater things in store for the org, and so very humble and proud to be a part of it, to be honest.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, I still remember the recommendation I gave to David Zell. I was like, you guys should really hire this guy. He follows me on Twitter, came to the meetup, seems like a good dude. You have absolutely nothing to lose. Because it was so early. Bitcoin Policy Institute was merely a dream at that point. It was so early. There was so much work to be done. But I think the moral of this entire story is because I helped Stephen get into Bitcoin Policy Institute and he produced that video, I could take credit for the pump up video. I think that was basically my work through you,
Yep.
through the actual people who made it.
You're an executive producer is what that means.
There you go.
So
I'm an EP now.
you found me, you produced me, and the video.
So we had one thing that I'm particularly proud of with Bitcoin Policy Institute is the P2P Rights Fund. So the P2P Rights Fund is a separate organization that is underneath Bitcoin Policy Institute. Bitcoin Policy Institute's head of policy, Zach Shapiro, runs P2P Rights Fund. And the whole goal of that fund is to support the legal defense of open source contributors, particularly Bitcoin open source contributors. And their landmark case right now, and the reason it got created in the first place, was the Samourai developer case, which is being prosecuted in New York federal court right now. And there was a big reveal that happened today. And you came, I know you're not the policy wonk, but you came prepared with a bunch of notes. I kind of want to talk about that for a little bit. What's going on there?
Yeah, man, I'm super kind of jazzed up, amped up about this because this is, like you said, I'm not the policy guy and I'm not an attorney, but I don't think you have to be to understand just the level of like ridiculousness that today's release highlights, man. Um, so essentially, what's happened is the defense counsel for the Samurai developers has filed a Brady letter, and this Brady letter is basically like, um, 6 months ago or 9 months ago. Trying not to read it. I've got it right here. 6 months before I'll just read it. 2024 Samurai indictment. Prosecutors asked the prosecutors that are prosecuting these guys right now.
DOJ.
DOJ. They asked FinCEN whether Samurai's non-custodial wallet and CoinJoin software constituted quote unquote money transmission. So the prosecutors asked FinCEN, are these guys money transmitters? FinCEN said, no, they're not. So the prosecutor said, got it. Thanks for letting us know. Waited 6 months and prosecuted them for being money transmitters. That's it. So yeah, I don't really have to be Zach Shapiro pick it all apart, but you really don't have to be an attorney. I think this pretty much everyone understands this except for the prosecutors on the case that the group that's in charge of making the rules says they're not breaking the rules, and then you went and prosecuted them for breaking the damn rules. It's I think my toddler could understand that. But there's sort of two why this matters. There's two or three things of why this matters, and it's obvious. It's obvious that prosecutors knew that they weren't considered money transmitters, and they did it anyway. So they have done that. They've regulated by indictment, which we already knew they were doing, but now we know it even more. And then I think the super shitty thing is that they abused the Brady process. So they had this conversation. Well, when you're going into trial, you're supposed to sort of release all this to the defense early on, and they didn't. And so not only is it like, oh, we're just now finding out about this, there's a lot of costs that are associated with it. There's time that's been lost already. There's like an opportunity cost is what I was trying to say. Opportunity cost with this being delayed. So there's unlike the federal government, defense doesn't have unlimited resources to push toward their case. That's part of the reason BPI launched the P2P fund. So they've spent all this money trying to get to this point, only to find out oh, we didn't have to focus on that if we would have just known this 6 months ago, which is obviously why they didn't want them to. And then there's the opportunities for hearings for dismissal that were made. There's bail consideration. So I don't know but basically when you first go in for your initial hearing with bail set, the judge is evaluating how strong a case does the government have versus how strong your defense is. They kind of look at all the baseline evidence. This should have been in there. I think if this was in there, I think it's reasonable to say, oh, so FinCEN said that they're not doing the thing that you're accusing them of 6 months before you accuse them of it and started this whole damn thing. Maybe we set bail a little differently. Maybe they could have the option to just get their case dismissed outright right then. But no. I think it's an egregious miscarriage of justice. I think it shows the worst parts of our criminal justice system, just put up in the sky with a bat signal. And I think it's I mean, I think it's disgusting. And so I would encourage everyone who's listening or listens to, I honestly pick up the phone and call your congressman and just tell him, be like, have you seen this? Have you seen what the DOJ did? Ignored guidance from FinCEN and prosecuted these guys anyways for no damn reason. There's like hard evidence in this document that's like, no, this is the conversation that happened. These are the emails that were sent. They said, no, they're not really doing it. The prosecutors even emailed each other and were like, yeah, FinCEN said, it's not like a game of telephone where I tell you something and you tell somebody else something and there gets some miscommunication. You can't have a telephone, you can't make the telephone game excuse if it's two people talking on the phone and then you repeat back to them what they said. Even worse if it's email. And we have that evidence. And so, you know, I just think it's I think it's just it's sort of just unbelievable. I mean, it's sort of unbelievable. It's unspeakable. This whole damn thing is a mess, and the case should be thrown out immediately, and these guys should be released and should never have a problem again. I mean, that's the most common sense solution. I don't see how that doesn't happen, but I do see how that doesn't happen, and now you see how it doesn't happen too. And so I would pick up the phone and call your congressman, you know, Republican, Democrat, whatever. I think this is I think, you know, even if they don't give a damn, which I think some of them do, uh, I think this is just let's just like look at it cynically. This is the easiest way for them to score political points against whoever they want. Like nobody looks good defending this. And so play the game if you want, whatever. I don't really care. I just think it needs to end yesterday.
Yeah, we need to get the Samourai developers out of this situation. It's absolutely ridiculous. So how did we find out about this? Did they, eventually voluntarily disclose it? Are you aware of how it actually came up eventually? Do we catch them in one or something? Or
but whatever I say is going to be like wrong because I'm going to miss like one or two things.
Okay.
I know how this came out. It came out early April, and then the letter got released today. But I don't know the like play-by-play of like how
so it might have
legal process.
So it actually might have something to do with the recent push for dismissal from the defense. Also, since then, I think it was maybe a little bit less than a month ago, the DOJ, was it the DOJ that came out and said that they're no longer going to do Biden era enforcement by prosecution, regulation by prosecution?
The Deputy Attorney General released a memo April 7th. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, on the federal level. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've kind of got a few things colliding. So you have the executive order that
Right.
January, and that's like I got the quote. Commits to protecting and promoting the ability to develop and deploy software to transact with other persons without unlawful censorship and to maintain self-custody of digital assets. That's in the executive order. And I think, people have problems with the executive order. That's in the executive order. I think it's pretty strong.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that in an executive order from the President of the United States.
We basically wrote that, right?
Somebody wrote it.
Okay.
The Attorney General on April 7th said, ending regulation by prosecutors. This is just like this April, right?
Yeah.
Deputy General had a memo that says the DOJ will no longer target virtual currency exchanges, mixing and tumbling services, offline wallets for acts of their end users or unwitting violation of regulations. And it prohibits the Bank Secrecy Act charges unless the defendant willfully ignored a clear licensing duty. And that's precisely what FinCEN said did not happen here. They're saying Samourai, one, isn't doing this, and two, even if they are, they're definitely not willfully doing it, but they're not doing it.
Yeah.
So you have these two, January EO, and then this memo from this month. The memo helps, right? And so you're one, even under the old regime, you shouldn't be prosecuting because it doesn't make any sense. And FinCEN's already covered that. And now under this new regime, They're saying we're not going to do this anymore. And so I'd imagine they'd have to back down. But
I'm cautiously optimistic.
I'll be optimistic when it's actually done, because
yeah, exactly.
It's unbelievable, man. And I hate that they're going through it. I think it's very personal. I also think, like, the message it sends, not just to Bitcoiners, but to entrepreneurs across the country, is that any guidance you've been given by the supposed regulatory agency that oversees, whatever you're doing, you cannot trust it at all, because we'll just make shit up and throw you in prison.
Yep.
And so that's the message, not just to software developers, not just to Bitcoiners, not just to people who are, wanting to utilize a peer-to-peer network, but to anyone doing anything, is that you can't trust the regulations, because even if prosecutors ask us and we say, oh, they're 100% compliant, they can say, oh, thanks for letting us know, we're going to do it anyway. And that's not the country we live in. Or is it? I guess we'll find out.
Well, so just to put some context here on the timeline, which makes it even worse. And by the way, I see Jor Zept 8900 sats. Thank you, Jor, for your support. Just the timeline here for a little bit more context. So the Samourai developers were arrested in April of last year. So it's a little bit over a year since then. So they were arrested in April of last year. This report seems to show that FinCEN was contacted 6 months prior to that and said that they were in a money transfer business and they were fine under the law. So that was probably October-ish, November 2023. January 2024, so in between FinCEN saying that to the DOJ and the DOJ arresting them, in January, so 1031 was one of the investors of Samourai. We co-wrote a legal brief with Samourai that was signed by like 20 plus of our portfolio companies, some of the best Bitcoin companies in the world, arguing for why coin joins and self-custody wallets were legal under the law, being proactive about it, saying like, look, we're not trying to break laws here. We're trying to be, within the existing regulatory framework. And FinCEN received that. And then 3 months later, DOJ went along with the prosecution anyway. So to your point of entrepreneurs not knowing where they stand, at least under the last administration and most administrations before that, I think that was very much the case. I think it's pretty amazing to witness. If you weren't there at the time, it's really hard to explain it. But April of last year, Trump was behind in the polls. People were pretending Biden was not, completely lost in terms of dementia or whatnot. I'm not a doctor. And the boot was getting cracked on the Bitcoin industry. And a lot of people were disenfranchised. A lot of people were scared. I remember trying to rally support for the Samourai Legal Defense Fund. And it was really hard to get people on the phone. And even people that said they would support, wouldn't do it publicly. BPI significantly stepped up to the plate. David Bailey, love or hate him, was like, we are going to change the direction of this country's regulatory environment in terms of Bitcoin. And the progress that has been made over the last year is fucking insane. It is absolutely insane. Bitcoiners are clearly a force to be reckoned with. Young Matt would have told you, fuck politics. I was completely disenfranchised. We're not going to get anywhere with it. Young Matt was wrong. And all you really need to do to see what happens without a politically active Bitcoiner class and Bitcoin industry is America versus Canada. Like, Canada's a fucking mess right now. Like, if you're running a Bitcoin business in Canada, you're freaking out. Even though they're right next to us, they're practically a 51st state. Their regulatory environment is fucking horrible. While in the US, we are putting a Bitcoiner in every congressional office. Pretty crazy.
It is crazy. And I just saw your comment here. Bitcoiners won't admit it, but it helps having a Bitcoin-friendly administration.
I'm admitting it. Yeah.
I'm admitting it. And, you know, I think it's unbelievable. I know it's a little weird, and I understand that for some people. It's like you caught your tail a little bit. But I have a lot of experience at like state level and local politics, and so, you know, federal level is a completely different animal in a number of ways, and so I completely understand that. I really do. I get it. But it's also like in some ways it's not. And I think working in state and local politics, you can develop the cynicism, which is 100% appropriate, and I completely get it. And I've seen how it all happens and the way things happen. But I've also seen the other side, and so I think I try to be, you know, I kind of play the middle a little bit when I'm talking to people who are way too hopeful or like overly optimistic about what can happen through political. I kind of have a word of caution, and then when I talk to people who I think are maybe a little too cynical, then I kind of take the opposite approach. It's a little bit nuanced, and I'm not trying to like play games, but I've seen both. And so, you know, I would much rather have someone who cares for whatever reason you think they care and is on team, like, not round up and arrest people, but on team, like, release guidance for like letting people, you know, run their businesses and develop software than the alternative. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm grateful for that. I know there's a lot of other things that are happening, but like within a vacuum, like I'm very appreciative for that, however long it lasts. I also think, you know, having this today doesn't guarantee we have this tomorrow or ever again. But I think, you know, that, you know, I think we should seize the opportunity and appreciate it for what it is.
We should 100% seize the opportunity. And we just got to keep pushing. Like, we got to push hard. I mean, look, I completely respect the Bitcoiner perspective that, you know, that there's a frog boiling situation, that, you know, people use the terms regulatory clarity and compliance to really mean surveillance and control. I don't think that is obviated. Obviously, that is still a concern today. But we don't live in a fucking vacuum. We don't live in a vacuum. And what we were witnessing was, over the last decade plus, the frog boiling situation, where it was the regulatory trend was getting worse and worse. We were seeing surveillance increase. We were seeing control increase. That was the status quo. We were seeing, I saw my friends literally get thrown in a fucking gulag, and more were coming. That was the environment. This time last year, the environment was, they started with the Samourai developers, but it doesn't matter what you're working on, they're coming after you next. And we saw that with companies like Phoenix pulling out of the United States, right? Phoenix, which is, you know, a very polished operation and tries to be very above board, even they were concerned that they would have issues in terms of U.S. government enforcement and subjugation. And so we really had no choice. There was no choice. The backs were against the wall, and the only thing to do was to push back. And the only thing was to fight it in every way possible. And that is through tools and education, but that's also through policy work and education on the policy side. And we've been incredibly effective. It is absolutely, like, you cannot overstate the progress that has been made on that front over the last year. It's absolutely insane. And someone coming into Bitcoin now just does not realize that, just does not appreciate that.
The other thing I want to add is someone coming into politics just now doesn't appreciate it either. And I think, you know, you ever see someone like you try something like for, you know, over and over and over again, and they walk in and just make it look easy, and they don't appreciate it because they made it look easy. Say someone who's like naturally gifted, like on the basketball court or whatever. Actually, my brother is a great example. I have a younger brother, and we're all over 6 foot tall, but he's like 6'7". So he's just a monster, and he's way younger than me. And I played basketball, you know, I tried all the way through school and stuff. And he just shows up and is like banging in threes. He's 6'7". He can handle the ball. And it was just like, dude, you don't even understand how lucky you are. Like we all would die. This is a horrible example, by the way. This is the one that came to mind. And I just kind of wanted to give my brother a shout out. Like, listen, this doesn't happen. This is my point. Like this does not happen this way. I worked in the Bitcoin space at a nonprofit for a few years now, but like some of those guys just joining, I spent a decade in public affairs, government relations. My father was a state representative until he term limited out, which I love the idea of term limits, by the way. And another family member was a state representative at my home state. I was, you know, kind of ear to the ground and through my like, you know, high school, college years. I ended up working in my home state for a while. I've been in 40 different states. I've lobbied. This doesn't happen this way, especially for some like geek group that like, you know, just shows up, doesn't have a CEO, has no centralization of like authority or like way to just, and even if you do, like take you could try 100, it would never happen this way. You don't just like show up day one and get executive orders. You don't just say, hey, this isn't fair. We need to change the regulation. And the United States government says, you know what? You're right. We're going to change that. You're right. This isn't fair. It doesn't happen that way. And it definitely doesn't happen in 9 months. But it just did. You could hire a top tier, why do all the other adjectives lobby firm in any state or in the state capital or in the nation's capital, and you would be paying retainers for a decade, and maybe you get a win or two, small. Yet here we are. And I think, to me, I'm like, oh my God, like it's a miracle, honestly. And I know everybody, like, there's all the cynical side of it, and I completely understand that. But within a vacuum of just like this is a coup. And I just have a deep appreciation and deep gratitude for everyone who was involved and is involved, the David Baileys of the world, whatever you think about all these people. I think they did something incredible, and I'm really grateful for it. And you know, you can't change my mind on that because I've just seen how hard it is. Um, and the cynicism is well earned, and maybe things go back to how they were or get worse. I don't know the future, but right now we have a massive opportunity, and I see what I see are people who are really trying to take advantage of it. And the first thing I do is get these guys out of prison and get this trial over with because it's a disgrace. And I think what you saw with Ross, that doesn't happen. And even go to the state level, you know, man, government takes forever, and that can work for you or against you, right? I think that's my favorite thing about government is that it's the most inefficient system in the history of mankind. I love that about government. I think it should always be inefficient, except for whenever I wanted to do something, right? Of course, like then we wanted to be hyper efficient and happen tomorrow. And in this case, it did. It's just kind of crazy to me. I'm not like trying to overly, you know, like over trying to sell this to anyone. I'm just telling you my opinion and what I see based on like career in politics, and even people I know that aren't in Bitcoin, they're like, how the hell did you guys pull that off? They're like, that's, and it's, there's a lot of people working behind the scenes, and so I appreciate those people who did, because they really risked a lot, because it could have, yeah. Anyway,
Well said. I mean, so why do you think it? I have my own reasons about why I think it was possible. Well, how the hell did we pull it off? How the hell did we make so much progress in really basically a year? And not really, like, Bitcoin Policy Institute got created 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but the real progress was the last year and a half.
yeah. Well, first of all, I don't think my opinion is like the definitive opinion. There's other people far better equipped to answer that. But I think a few things like happened. I think some people had a really good plan. It takes a good plan. It takes like good timing and some luck. And then I also think it helps to be right. And this is something I talk about a lot with our work at BPI, is that it really helps to be just right. And Bitcoiners are right about most things. And so you're like, hey, Bitcoin's good for the United States of America. I think that's true. And I think, you stand some other things up against it, like, hey, like Ripple is good for the United States of America. I think that's not true. I mean, whatever. Like, it doesn't make any. So it helps to be right, because there are people, believe it or not, who do give a damn about what's right and wrong, who are seeking the truth and trying to do the best they can. And some of them even work in Congress, believe it or not. Am I saying all elected officials are that way? Of course not. That would be a ridiculous statement. But I think it's equally ridiculous to say that all of them are bad. I think there are people who are really trying to serve their country, and they mean what they say. And I've met those people, and I've known people who were great people before they went into office and turned into horrible people. And I've seen people who were great people before they went into office and became better people and became better leaders. And I've seen people who were horrible people before they went into office. Most of them were pretty much stayed horrible people once they got into office. But I think being right helps. And I think, I think we're onto something here with this. I think that's the message that resonated in the further up we go. Is people are like, yeah, either they already knew about Bitcoin and they're like, yeah, dude, I've always thought Bitcoin was super cool. And like, man, finally I can start talking about this a little more. I think we're seeing some of that. There's more Bitcoiners in DC than we ever imagined, right? Even at 3-letter agencies that are like kind of, these, there's thousands of people in cubicles, right? And they've got their little Bitcoin stuff pinned up in their cubicle, and everybody's just like, they talk about it at their lunch break, just like normal people would. And now they're like, oh, this is sort of in vogue. Like, this is happening. This is a topic. Now I can talk about it at work. I think we're seeing some of that play out too.
Yeah, I mean, at the event last month, I had an older gentleman come up to me, and he said, huge fan of the podcast, and that he used to work at the agency. And I was hoping he was referring to the EPA, but he was referring to the CIA. And there's Bitcoiners everywhere. There's Bitcoiners everywhere. And I think your points make a lot of sense. And just this fact that we have this organic grassroots global community of people that have relatively aligned ideas, but more importantly, aligned incentives around this network and this asset, right? And it's almost like it's like a shared equity, right? It's like as this network grows, we all have increased purchasing power. We all have increased freedom to do with what we want in our lives. And so this grassroots community already existed. So like when the backs were up against the wall and the moment was here and we had to act, a lot of people stepped up, and they didn't have to be cold called, or you didn't have to knock on their doors or whatever. Like, they were ready to go. They were like, put me in, coach, time to go. Let's fucking make this thing happen. And that's special. You can't recreate that. It doesn't matter how much VC money you have from like A16Z or whatever. You can spend billions of fucking dollars and you can't recreate that. That has to happen naturally and organically. And it's one of the single most bullish fundamentals about Bitcoin in general.
That's a fantastic point. The one of the most hilarious things to be a part of, and most like campaigns are this way. You start this campaign, whatever the issue is, and so just see for people listening, when I talk about campaigns, there's like candidate campaigns where you're like, hey, let's get this person elected. And then there's issue advocacy, issue campaigns. And that can be, hey, we want to, lower taxes, right? In this state or wherever. And so then you're like, you always see a campaign because they're like, all right, we've got all this money from interested parties. We raise all this money up. And then you're like, all right, what do we do with it? We're going to run a campaign. We're going to do media and all this shit. And the big thing at the top, though, is like, hey, you know what we need? We need some grassroots advocacy. And they're like, oh, cool. Yeah, great idea. All right, let's cobble together our grassroots team. And what's the thing they do? They realize they don't have a goddamn grassroots team because thing that most issues have. Most people are busy. They're going to work. They're raising kids. They're like doing their thing, shopping for groceries, like their kid's sick, like whatever. I don't have time to be a grassroots advocate. And so then you have to artificially create this grassroots support. You're like, I know people like tax cuts. They just don't really care enough to like show up to events or anything because they're busy. So like, some groups will pay protesters to show up. I know everybody's shocked to hear that. And so they spend, millions of dollars to pay people to show up, or they like send 1,000 emails and they try to get all your like phone numbers so they can text you, and they artificially create. And by artificially I mean they actually still don't do it. Even if they spend all this money, they still can't get people to do anything because you can't force people to care. And with Bitcoin, we kind of have the opposite problem. We have a fantastic grassroots network. It's literally like the definition of, of Bitcoin. And it is what it is. What did we not have? Like organization, centralization. I'm not saying that's a problem thing. It's what the reality of the like boots on the ground. And so I think you're seeing like kind of the first thing you talk about campaign strategy. You can have all this money and like this powerful group of people that want to enact some plan, or you can have all these like random people who just care about something. Which one's going to win? Well, I think we're seeing that. And so I think there's a lot of power there. Name one other group. Maybe not one. Name 5 other groups that have the same like level of grassroots passion that you see from
the gun lobby.
Right.
It's like guns, religion, and Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty accurate.
Those are the 3.
Like the religious grassroots and gun grassroots groups have been pretty successful over the years.
Yeah.
And so, I think a lot of it is the power of that. And then a lot of it is also people who are in power seeing that and saying, oh, damn, I don't know if we want to align against this group because we even if you wanted to, it's not like there's a grassroots passionate group of sovereign individuals that have all got together to talk about how bad Bitcoin is or how bad this doesn't exist. And so there's zero opposition on the grassroots side, although some would like to try to convince you otherwise, or do the old strategy of have a lot of money and hopefully dollars equates grassroots support. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, well said. So you guys have this big event coming up, your landmark event coming up next month. What's the deal with that? Should people go? Are you excited about it? Is it sold out already? What's up?
Yeah. Yeah. So the Bitcoin Policy Summit, this is our third annual. I feel like when you get to the third one, you can really start saying annual, Can't say
I
first
always think
annual.
it's
But
I always think it's funny when you see like a restaurant or whatever, and they have the established sign outside, and it's like last year. It's like, okay, well, you're a dreamer. One day, one day it'll be old. But
yeah,
anyway, sorry, third annual.
unless you're doing it ironically, then it's like, hey, that's pretty fun. But third annual Bitcoin Policy Summit, June 25th in Washington, D.C. And we love, like I said earlier, we love to have as many Bitcoiners as possible show up. It's going to be a blast if you like that kind of thing. And I do, and I think everyone here does. It's going to be a monumental summit. It really is. I'm not saying that just because it's ours or just because whatever, but like, it's going to be freaking huge, man. You saw what happened with Bitcoin for America. We can play the video again later or whatever, in March. And we're bring our whole goal for the summit, and this is why we started it a few years ago, isn't to sell a bunch of tickets or like, all this kind of stuff. It's really to get Bitcoiners on stage, our best and brightest, and to make the case for elected officials, policymakers, regulatory bodies, government agencies, all the people that either make decisions or help influence decisions, and say, hey, like, Bitcoin's awesome, man. And Bitcoin's good for our country. And there's a lot of people that support, peer-to-peer rights and all these things we've been talking about. Decentralized network, like the ability to, self-custody, all these sort of things. And why that's not just like why people support it, but why that's a good idea and how it interlocks with the greater ideals of the United States of America. And to take it further, and I'm going to trip and stumble over Matt Pine's territory here, how it helps the United States, or could help the United States kind of fulfill some of its goals as far as nation state competition and some of the things we're facing internationally in the next 10 years, 5 years, 2 days, apparently now. So that's kind of the vision, is to get the staffers out there in the audience, to get Bitcoiners on stage. So they're opposite of what you normally see in Washington, D.C. They're always talking to you, and we're saying, hey, you want to hear about Bitcoin? And we actually, even a few years ago, had the first one. It was like, I went full time with Bitcoin Policy Institute, and it was like a month later, like FTX collapses, everything's on fire, people are running out of buildings, and it was all hell broke loose. And so you see how that like impacted us. Well, imagine the impact it had in Washington, D.C. for people who didn't know most of their first experience, their baseline, initial getting a Bitcoin came from, they're like, well, what the hell is FTX or an SBF? But they both seem
Right.
pretty. And Bitcoin. Oh, I've always wondered what Bitcoin was. Now I understand. So it created like kind of a pretty bad situation, especially for a Bitcoin policy think tank in DC. So we said, all right, we've got to hit reboot, man. We've got to turn the power off and turn it back on again. And so we just decided to own it. We said, hey, FTX collapsed. Bitcoin looks pretty bad right now, huh? Why don't you come to the summit and let's talk about it? And we had a lot of people show up, and so we were able to talk to this group of like a few hundred policymakers and say, hey, here's what Bitcoin really is. We think this was horrible too. We don't support any of this. Here's some human rights activists. Here's how they use Bitcoin. Here's a real use case. This was not a real use case. This was a bad use case. In fact, this was kind of opposite of what Bitcoin stands for. But here's what Bitcoin is really about. And here's people that you can trust. And here's what they're doing with it and with the network. And that was powerful. We had some really powerful, compelling speakers. So we ran it back the next year, and it was like, should America embrace Bitcoin? And we made the case why we thought that was probably a good idea. And I don't know if it's prophetic or what, but like kind of seems like it happened a little bit this year. And so this year, in June 25th, we're going to say, okay, America's embracing Bitcoin. Now what? What happens next? And I think we're going to run it back with Andrew Holmes. He's on the speakers list now.
Yep.
Talking Bitbonds, Keynote 2.0. Super excited about that. He's obviously our boy and your boy, a great guy. We have we've announced a couple elected officials speaking. We're going to make a major announcement tomorrow. It's going to be cool. We got some big heavy hitters coming, and we're going to do a full day of really keynotes. We've kind of moved away from the panels. We'll have a couple panels that are compelling, some really good ones, but we're going to do a lot of keynotes, like lightning talks, like 10 minutes, and just mining, energy, the strategic initiatives there, Bitbonds, strategic Bitcoin reserve, human rights, like up and down the line. The fun thing that I think people are going to be amped about. So you show up on Tuesday night, show up early, boring Odell, and we're going to do a preview party at the new pub key that's going to be opening in Washington, D.C.
Is that public information?
Yeah, that's out there, man. We're doing a
Well,
party.
I mean, it definitely is now. So
yeah, it's out there now, and so it's a BPI HQ, the Bitcoin Embassy, pub key, DC. That's going to open a long time from now. But if you come to the summit, you get a little preview of it. We're going to do a little party there.
Yeah, the BPI offices will be based in the same building as new PubKey DC, because everyone knows that policy really happens over drinks in a darkly lit bar.
That's right. It's where the real work gets done, when everybody's intoxicated and singing Irish songs.
It's shanties.
Yeah, we need some Bitcoin shanties, man.
We're working on it.
Or 3-4 time, 1, 2, dun, dun, dun. We can write one. That's what we'll do next, Rip, man. We'll write some music.
We were out to lunch with our son, my wife and I. And he's speaking words. He's got, his first base words, but he's still a little bit young for like full words. And he just like went into a shanty, but just complete gibberish, it was a toddler shanty. And I came to the same conclusion. I was like, we do need some Bitcoiner ones. But he like was looking around the cafe. He wanted people to join in with him. And everyone's like, we have no idea what you're saying.
Tables. Yeah. Bitcoin. We need some Bitcoin limericks as well. But yeah, so Tuesday night.
So that's Tuesday night.
That's the 24th, June 24th. Tuesday night's the launch, Bitcoin Embassy launch party. Come have some beers, hang out. It's gonna be fun. Then we get serious on Wednesday, throw the tie on. We do the summit, all the keynotes. We've got a VIP.
Do you have to wear a suit?
Strongly
advised. It's strongly advised.
I think you should. I think it's kind of like, I think you're gonna want to, or at least we're a button up. You can leave the top one undone.
I wore a button up. I wore a collar.
On.
I would have had to be clear, I would have had to buy a suit, because the only suit I own is my wedding suit. It just didn't feel like the right situation for it.
I mean, how many more times married, man? Like, wear your suit.
I know, but it's like a bright green. It was a little bit aggressive. But yeah, anyway, I mean, to be clear, that was my second time ever in DC, and the first time was a field trip during college. I was like, besides my attire, I was completely out of my element.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, man. When you first it's a little, there's a shock to the system. It's like a cold plunge. You go to DC. I forget. If you've not been to DC, this is a good chance.
I forget who the staff was, but when I walked in the first time, there was 2 BPI staff members like taking people's tickets, And I walked up, and like one of them was like, "Who's this schmuck that's completely underdressed?" And then the other one was like, "Oh, that's Matt Odell, one of our board members." What a timeline we live in. Okay, so Tuesday, then Wednesday. It's a 2-day event. Wednesday and Thursday is the event.
Tuesday night, all day Wednesday is the summit, like the panels, the presentations, all this sort of thing. People hang out that night. And then and hey, we're still looking for a few sponsors to help us cover the cost of the event. If you need to, if you're interested, I'm your guy.
What's the best way they can reach out?
Just shoot me an email. Shoot me an email.
Okay.
Address.
What?
You want me to share my email address?
I mean, yeah, you should probably share your email address. I mean, I know it.
All right. spollock@btcpolicy.org. SPOLLOCK@btcpolicy.org.
I won't put it in the show notes because then the AI is just going to start spamming you. But
right, I kind of like it. I like when AI spams me. It's like it's kind of nice. So Wednesday is all the content. Thursday's a new thing. So we're doing a day 2 this year, and we've never done that. So we're gonna have like sort of closed door roundtables, people meeting with elected officials, and then we're gonna do a day on the Hill, which is gonna be awesome. Our new government affairs director, Mr. Egan, is leading the charge on that, and we're gonna take Bitcoiners, and we're just gonna go to Capitol Hill, meet with congressional offices, talk to them, introduce, hey, do the day on the Hill thing, which is going to be really fun. If you've never done something like that, we'd love for you to come and be a
that's
part
cool.
Be a part of the process. You can, maybe you get to meet your elected official from your wherever, or you can just kind of be part of the group, whatever you want to do, meet with staffers. They're always, I remember the first time I did one, and it was kind of like, oh, everybody's going to be busy. Are they going to be annoyed that I'm here or whatever? It's like, it's actually kind of encouraging and kind of fun. You're like, they're really excited. Like, hey, you came all the way to their office to talk about the thing you really care about. And I think hopefully you'll be pleasantly surprised, even for those of you who are a little skeptical, to just kind of see there's some normal people here that are really curious, intellectually curious, and they want to know what's up with Bitcoin. Why is this? I think one of my favorite stories is I had a staffer that I knew, and they're like kind of into Bitcoin, and they're interested, and like, they're talking about it in their staff meetings, and they mentioned, they're like, there's this guy on staff, and he's always talking about like illicit finance and like Bitcoin's like money laundering for drug lords or whatever. And so I was like, well, I happen to work at a Bitcoin think tank. Let's test that and see. So we did a white paper about how that that's just like not the use case for Bitcoin. And I caught up with him later. I said, hey, did you ever hear from your fellow staffer? And he was like, yeah, I never mentioned that ever again in a meeting. So I was like, oh, cool. Let's dunk on people with white papers. And so, so like that, there's people who want to learn, there's people who are opposed. There's opportunity there. We'd love for you to come out. It's going to be phenomenal week in Washington, and you can kind of see what we're about, website is btcpolicysummit.org, btcpolicysummit.org. And we do have it's invite only, but we ask you to apply to attend, to keep the riffraff out. And so, I think pretty much, if you guys apply, I'll check it out. I look at we look at all the, so please apply. Unless you're like, on a terrorist watch list, we probably, we may not let you in, but, which maybe some of you are, we're not going to determine that here on the Citadel Dispatch. But if you're a functioning adult, we'd probably love to have you. I would love to have you.
Yeah, I mean, look, space is limited. The exact verbiage is request to join.
Right. It is.
And
we have sold a lot of tickets already, but I think, we'll try to figure out a way to make room for you. We'd love to have you.
But yeah, where I was going with this is like, don't be self-conscious. The worst thing worst case scenario, there's no space for you. And Stephen and his team will say so. But you literally have nothing to lose. Consider getting out of your comfort zone and attending. I will say that last month's event, while overwhelming, was something incredibly unique and impactful, and something that I will never forget. Full disclosure, these are paid tickets, so it's $500 if you just want the 1-day ticket, and it's $800 if you want the day on the Hill as well. And obviously, you will get your money back if Stephen rejects your application. We're not just going to take your money from you.
Keeping your money. No. Hey, if
go on.
If ticket cost is the reason you're not coming, please shoot me an email and we'll figure something out.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear here, BTC, the Bitcoin Policy Institute, is a nonprofit. We run on a relatively shoestring budget. I personally and the rest of our 3-person board do not get paid for our work there. So any support is helpful, whether that's buying a ticket and attending, whether that's, if you run a company, becoming a sponsor of the event or the organization, or donating. If you're an American, you can get a tax credit. If you want to be anonymous, you can donate anonymously and you won't get the tax credit, but you can donate anonymously with Bitcoin, which is also completely understated benefit of Bitcoin. Through my work on both OpenSats and Bitcoin Policy Institute, it kind of blows your mind when someone sends, $200,000 donation anonymously. Like, I don't think people really appreciate that. That's 2 Bitcoin. Someone just drops 2 Bitcoin in the donation address and boom, done. That was never possible before. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is cool. And it would be cool if someone did that for us. We would love it, man. Yeah, I refrain from wearing my I've tried my best to not wear my VP of Development hat, but you kind of handed it to me. So my whole job at BPI right now is focused on helping the Bitcoin Policy Institute become an enduring institution in DC. I don't think Bitcoin's going anywhere. And I do think that I think it's going to become increasingly important that we have thoughtful policy in in the most powerful country in the world, that we think about this carefully like it or not, policy is going to be made. That's just true. And I think it would be better if with regard to Bitcoin specifically, Bitcoin policy is going to happen, and we've already seen what can happen. I think the more people in the room that have an understanding of Bitcoin, appreciation for it, may even own it, or at least think it's really interesting and cool and important, the better. And so our whole job as a nonprofit is to educate elected officials, educate policymakers, staffers, everyone will listen in our nation's capital, and to help them grow in their Bitcoin journey, to understand it, and then to offer sort of wisdom about policy and things that it could, second order effects that maybe people haven't thought through all the way, that might happen down the road. And so that's what we do. People run things by us, we run things by them. It's a lot of off the books meetings with our team, and trying to help our country be wise as it's making decisions about policy and directives with regard to Bitcoin and digital currencies and the whole thing. And so my job is to help us become a legacy institution that's not just here, for a few years or 5 years, but 5, 10, 20 years, 30 years down the line, that BPI would become the type of organization that, oh yeah, man, I remember when BPI was, on the front lines back in 2025 and 2023. And look at it now. We never would have imagined where we are. And I'm glad that maybe some of the things we're doing now, or have done, or will do soon, will have a lasting impact. And we'll look back and say, man, I'm glad we really took that seriously back then, because it could have went a lot differently. So that's the kind of institution we're trying to build. We've got a lot of work to do. We're really just getting started, and We can't charge for our services as a nonprofit 501c3. That's why we get a tax exempt status. We rely on people to fund our work, and a lot of people have been very generous. And so if you've supported us and you're listening, thank you. Literally could not do it without you, and couldn't do it without you, Matt. Thanks for your support. I know you put a ton of time and energy into BPI, and personally haven't gotten anything back. But you've been an advocate, and on our board, and so founding board member. So thank you, man. Really means a lot, and I'm honored that you plugged me into it. It was a perfect fit.
Well, as an American, I think, along with a lot of my fellow Americans, we've gotten significant benefit from the work at Bitcoin Policy Institute. I remember when we were joking, this was probably like a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, that we were going to make hats that said Bitcoin Policy Institute, keeping you out of the gulags. It was more real than we ever really considered. That's it. That's the synopsis. If you want to raise a family, you want to grow a business, you want to see America be a strong country and our communities be stronger than they have ever were before, you got to step up to the plate. And Bitcoin Policy Institute will help keep us out of the gulags in the process.
That's right. Let's get the Samourai. Let's get them out here first, and maybe
we got Ross free. We'll free Samourai. We'll repeal the Bank Secrecy Act. These are just some of the goals that we have. I think the sky's the limit. I think we have to keep pushing. I think we need to be optimistic. Another piece, which is relevant for both OpenSats and Bitcoin Policy Institute, is because we're Bitcoiners, we keep a Bitcoin treasury. So you can know that if you donate, every expense is weighed on the opportunity cost of Bitcoin. Unlike most charities, your money will not go frivolously wasted. If it doesn't make sense to spend it, we will hold it in Bitcoin for the long term, so that we can spend it in the future when it is needed. So don't worry about waste on that side. I think that's also one of the understated benefits that people don't realize, is that it really does force efficiency and responsibility in how you spend funds. And that's in the private sector, but that's also with charities. Stephen, this was a great chat. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought you did great for your second podcast appearance. I actually realized we also did a radio show together in Nashville, which is not quite a podcast, but kind of cool.
That was interesting, wasn't it?
It was awesome. It's you can do as many podcasts in the world, but going to an actual radio studio and sitting down with an actual radio host is just a completely different vibe. Like, that's not a...
Yeah.
I'll remember that for a while.
That happened because I was at home working one day and, cooking on something, and my wife calls me and she's like, there's this radio station we like off and on will listen to, or she'll have it on in the background. And I didn't actually know she like listened to talk radio, is the funny thing. She's not like a talk radio gal, but she was on a talk radio kick. And one of the local stations was, she called me. She was kind of like all amped up. She's like, they're talking about Bitcoin. They're talking about Bitcoin on the radio. And I was like, really? And it was the station that we listened to, and at the whatever hour. And I was like, what are they saying? She was like, well, they're like asking people, they like don't know anything about it. And they're asking people to call. And so I was like, that's funny. And so I was like, I'll call them. And like, kind of feel a little bit of like civic responsibility here. It's my radio station. So I called and let the producer know, hey, if you ever really do want to talk about Bitcoin, I know people that could come on. I was thinking of, you, others like the OG like podcast hosts that could just come on And so I call in and they're like, hello, this is blah, 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 blah. And I was like, hey, I was just going to talk about, I wanted to talk to somebody about the Bitcoin thing. And they're like, cool, give me 1 second. And I was like, all right. So I'm just like shooting emails, like I've just got this thing on speakerphone, and they're like, hey, you're live on such and such. You know, they just put it on the radio. And I was like, oh, what's up? And you know, about like 15 minutes on this radio show. And I'm like, you know, the guy doesn't know nothing. He's asking all these wild questions. I don't even know how to answer, you know, like is Bitcoin really orange or isn't it a little like green? I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, like just goofy questions. And so anyway, we get off and they're like, hey, if you want, you come in studio sometime and let's talk. And so we did. I brought Odell and we had a fun time. I actually like that kind of stuff, man. Those radio interviews are fun. You're right. It's a blast.
Yeah, that was cool. I enjoyed it. We were a good team. We worked well together.
I gotta shout out Wood Butcher. Thanks. This is a quote from Wood Butcher. That's a funny name. On here it says, "Thanks for all your great work keeping my ass out of the gulag. My number one priority." Oh man.
There you go. We gotta make the hats.
That's what it's got to say. Keeping your ass out of the gulag. That's what it's got to say.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a little stronger.
And we could do money signs for the ass part. This is great. I'll try and is that radio show on the do we have a link to it? Was it on the internet too?
Yeah, dude. I'm sure it is.
If you track it down and send it to me, I'll put it in the show notes because I don't know. It was a fun rip. It was special. And I'll put it in the description for people.
You really did well on it. You did well.
Likewise, sir. Likewise. So anyway, this was a great chat, freaks. Next week, I got VNPRC coming on, and we're going to talk about hash pools, which is the concept of using Charming eCash to make mining pools better. I'm really excited about this conversation. He's fucking awesome. It'll be a really fun chat. And that's going to be at 16:30 UTC, Monday the 12th. I got another show lined up the week after that. I'm going to try and just keep popping them out every week, especially right now that I'm taking a little break from travel, focusing on family, like a little bit settled in over here. So I'm going to try and pump out as many dispatches as possible. Thank you for supporting the show. If you donate Bitcoin, it means a lot. It keeps me coming in and week out. Literally every stat matters. I notice it. Every comment matters. I'm reading all your comments, even the mean ones. On that note, I saw earlier that Vake zapped 4,200 sats and said Matt Odell is grumpy. I do read the mean comments as well. Steven.
I gotta give a shout out, man. Listen, all right. I'm a professional fundraiser. Can I help you out?
Yeah.
Somebody drop a bag on this guy. This show's incredible. He's been running it for like 30 years. Somebody support this show. This is one of the badass shows out there. He does it completely free. He doesn't run any ads. He does a fantastic job. He does it every week. I've never done anything that consistent in my life. Like, you know, like somebody, whoever, please support Matt. Like this show is fucking awesome. And thank you for doing it, Matt. I appreciate it. I've learned so much from this over the years. And it's an honor to be on, man. But I wanted to shill you.
Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate it. Great chat. We'll have you on again sometime in the future. Do a catch up maybe in 6 months, a year. Try and make it a little bit more of a regular thing. I think that'd be fun. I mean, look what we got done in a year. Imagine next year we're going to be like, I don't even know. Can't really comprehend what we'll be. Let's just keep the momentum up.
We'll do it, man. We'll do it. Thanks for having me on.
Much love, freaks. btcpolicy.org if you want more information. btcpolicysummit.org if you want to go to the event. Steven's on X. It's S Pollock is his username. You're not on Nostr, right?
S Pollock BTC on X. S Pollock BTC.
And you're not on Nostr yet, right?
I have an account. I'm a non.
He's going to use Nostr more in the future, but he's not yet. And if you need to email him, he already told you his email address. It's spollock@btcpolicy.org. Send him an email. Just say hi. You don't even have to. Apparently he just likes receiving emails. So
Do not.
just say hi. Send
I have
him
so many emails already. Unless you're AI.
Steven,